Everyone squared away? Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. I'd like to also thank Terry Clark, Administrator of York County Children and Youth Families Agency, for joining me today. As most of you know, some of you may not, I've been pushing hard over these last several years to improve our child welfare system in Pennsylvania. The main thrust started when we did our audit of the Child Line program in the Department of Human Services. And at that time, we found 56,000 unanswered phone calls at the child abuse hotline in 2015 alone. Through a lot of work from good people at Department of Human Services here in Harrisburg and my team, a lot of those changes have been made. But as you know, we've now issued 2 State of the Child reports, and there is a lot of work that still needs to be done in Pennsylvania to make sure that at-risk children get the appropriate protection that they need. Now, some progress, as I said, is being made. Many of the recommendations from my report have resulted in action, such as updating the caseworker job requirements and the job descriptions, improving the training for new caseworkers, specifically the training that they receive, and having working groups look at redundant paperwork that can be reduced to make the workplace more efficient and more effective for the caseworkers. But clearly, more needs to be done to protect the children of Pennsylvania. These solutions require immediate attention from a multitude of state and county officials as well as community members. While my State of the Child reports focused on the big picture ways to protect children, I continue to audit individual county children and youth services. These are people on the front lines working to stop and prevent child abuse. My audits show that until the system-wide challenges are addressed, kids are going to continue to be put in harm's way. I recently completed my latest audit of the York County Children, Youth, and Families Agency, which, as I've noted in the past, was, to say the least, struggling. Caseworkers were dealing with the broken system as well as changes made to the Child Protective Services Law between 2013 and 2015 following the horrific Jerry Sandusky child sexual abuse case. Those changes resulted in a surge in the number of child abuse allegations the agency was required to investigate. In my last audit of the York CYF office in January 2017, I noted that the agency was so overwhelmed that it was struggling to perform its basic function of protecting children and families. In the audit I'm releasing today, I'm pleased to say that under the leadership of Terry Clark, York County CYF has made a host of corrective actions that have led to better protection of children, youth, and families. There's always room for improvement, and the system-wide changes that need to happen in Pennsylvania must continue to move forward because there are going to continue to be challenges and it will never be perfect. But I also want to note that there has been a tremendous improvement in York. Now, there was some things that we identified in our audit. The first observation highlights the fact that York County Children and Youth Families was placed on 4 provisional licenses from 2014 through 2016 because of its decreased ability to provide adequate services. During that time, corrective actions were implemented that ultimately led to the agency receiving a full license again in November 2016. Among the corrective actions was an initiative in mid-2016 that saw 25 vacancies filled within 5 months. That's 11% of the entire staff. And again, this shows another area where when people take our audit seriously and there's a collaborative approach to how people take the audits and the work my team is doing, major improvements can be made that can improve the lives of all Pennsylvanians. There was one finding in my report that shows the ripple effect caused by the caseworker shortage. For a time in 2014, the agency was not doing everything it needed to verify that services were actually being provided by third-party direct service providers. Now, what's that? That's basically a fancy way of saying subcontractors of the county weren't being appropriately held accountable. And we've seen this in a multitude of other counties as well, particularly Erie, where the county subcontracts out, and because there isn't enough staff, they're kind of hoping that the job was done well and not verifying that the job was done well. We also saw that with an early audit of mine of what is known as a PPL company, where they were subcontracted out by the Pennsylvania Department of Human Services to do in-home care, and then the workers weren't even getting paid, and the state wasn't even aware of the situation. Fortunately, as the working conditions at York County CYF office have improved, the agency began using a new tool to again verify these invoices before paying them. Again, that's a good sign in showing that taxpayer dollars are being appropriately held accountable. I am glad to see York County is making improvements, and not just because I live there. But as I said, we must do more to protect children. That's why I continue to study how our most vulnerable children are being protected. I have come across, through the tremendous work of some members of my team, another area that warrants additional scrutiny. When caseworkers allege that a child has been abused, the accused abuser may appeal that decision to an administrative court known as the Bureau of Hearings and Appeals. And if that sounds like something out of bureaucracy purgatory, that's exactly what this is. The Bureau is overseen by the Department of Human Services. In addition to hearing appeals in child abuse cases, the Bureau is tasked with hearing appeals in nearly 280 different areas, such as daycare licensure, denial, suspension, or reduction of any state-issued assistance benefit, particularly SNAP, or what some people would commonly be referred to as food stamps, nursing home intervention requests, and many more. This Bureau hears an average of 1,000 child abuse appeals each year. That is nearly 4 cases of child abuse every single workday. And what's shocking is that on average, the Bureau backs up caseworkers only about 4% of the time. When I say caseworker, I'm talking about county caseworkers, 4% of the time, or 40 out of every 1,000 cases. Think about it. The system is potentially sending hundreds of children back into the homes where CYS caseworkers found that they were being abused. That is an insane system. And we are going to do everything we can to do a deep dive on this and find out what, usually I say what, if any, but I think most of you know me by now. First of all, if LeBron James needs to be improved, then this Bureau of Hearings and Appeals need to be improved. There's no way that is the most effective way to make sure that our children are being protected. Now, most people believe that once CYS has determined that someone abused a child, criminal charges automatically follow. In reality, only a small percentage of those cases result in criminal charges. Most of the time, this administrative court is as far as a case gets. It is, by the very definition of it, a shadow justice system, out of the light of the public, and in many respects, out of the light of accountability until today. Now, let me give you one example. Commonwealth Court ruled in a case this week where this shadow court wanted to expunge the record of a woman accused by Luzerne County Children and Youth Services Office of abusing and terrorizing her 10-year-old son. The shadow court didn't allow the CYS staff to even present all of the evidence they gathered in documenting the abuse. Who in their right mind thinks that that makes any sense? So if we're going to say we're all about protecting children, you've got to at least allow the caseworker who documented all the abuse to present all of that evidence. Now, granted, I'm for understanding that the caseworker could be wrong, and you allow the other side to make their case too. But you can't get to the truth if you don't allow the caseworker who's in the home, talking to the child, interviewing all the people, present all the evidence. That's just wrong. Thank God that in this case, Commonwealth Court stepped in and sent the case back for review. That's one case out of 1,000 this year, and it's not even settled yet. What about all the other kids, all these other cases that are in purgatory hell because this appeals court, without even real judges, I don't mean that they're not good or bad people, just without real judges, are dealing with thousands of cases in so many different areas every single year. So, my team, we're going to try to do something about this, to shed light on this system, to find out how this Bureau is doing and what needs to be done to make the system better for every kid in Pennsylvania, particularly the ones that are at threat of abuse or have been abused. So today I'm launching a special report that will focus on this Bureau of Hearings and Appeals, and I still can't believe that's the name they came up with, because it is the definition of that. I'm going to tell you why that name exists. You come up with that name when nobody cares about it. Because if it actually was about protecting children, they would call it something dealing with protection of children. That's somebody that just threw in the towel and came up with a bureaucratic name, hoping nobody would pay attention to it. So I want to find out who decides who serves on that bureau. Are bureau members adequately trained in how to handle children as witnesses? What happens to cases that are appealed to Commonwealth Court after they go through the bureau? And is this Department of Human Services, and is the Department of Human Services doing enough to oversee how this bureau functions? And finally, does this bureau's actions on appeals influence how often caseworkers are willing to recommend action against child abuse? No child should ever be mistreated. We all know that, and we all believe that. But is the system doing everything it can to protect those children and follow through what we all know or what we all want to be true? Now, thank you again for being here. After Terry speaks, I'm going to be open for any questions, but I'd like to invite Terry Clark up to say a few words, and then I'll be happy to, like I said, to take your questions. And Terry is the Director of Children and Youth Families in York County. Terry?
Thank you. Good morning. Again, my name is Terry Clark. I'm the Administrator for York County's Office of Children, Youth, and Families. I've been there since 2015, and I do want to first thank the Auditor General for keeping the issue of children and families in Pennsylvania in the forefront, and for bringing a lot of the concerns and challenges that we as child welfare agencies in this state have. Second, it has not been a secret that York County Children and Youth has had a lot of challenges and struggles, and we still have a lot of challenges and struggles. We have a long way to go. I do appreciate the auditor talking about the changes we've made, but in my mind, I still know we have a lot more to do. We have a lot of caseworkers who are coming into the field very young, out of college, and not having worked in any other type of setting with families, and the way that we train them is important for their success in the field, and we're really happy that the changes that have been made with our training program through the University of Pittsburgh's Child Welfare Resource Center have actually been implemented. In my agency, we have been doing a lot of creative, out-of-the-box thinking in terms of how to recruit caseworkers. In York County, we've had a series of informational sessions offered at different times of the day and at different locations in the county, and we'll continue to do those to try and pull in people that work and live in our community that might want to change careers and come into the field. We are really creative in those informational sessions as to when we bring them in and talk to them about what it means to come into child welfare and child protective services. And then if they are interested at that setting, the informational session, we then actually have them sit at a computer, write at a computer, fill out the application, and go through the application process so that it speeds up that process to get them into being interviewed much quicker. We also are fortunate to have gotten out of civil service. I think people have heard in the news already that York County got the approval from the Department of Human Services to leave civil service and become merit hire. So we're happy that we're now in the merit hire process, because that will allow us to hire positions much quicker. It will do nothing to help us retain staff, so we still have to think about the challenges and the things that we have to do to keep staff in the job once we get them into the job. One of the other things we're trying to do is make sure that we talk more to our caseworkers to find out what supports they need to be able to do the jobs very successfully. We're starting what we call debriefing sessions in York County for children and youth workers who come back from cases and they need someone to talk to just about what they've seen, what they've heard, what they've experienced, and then allow a trained facilitator to be able to have a conversation with them about them to make sure that they're in the right frame of mind, and if they need some additional support, that we provide that support to them. So again, I do want to give my accolades to the Auditor General for keeping this in the forefront, because this is important to us. And if we want to see children be protected and receive the types of services that those families feel that they need, the only way to do that is to have caseworkers who are prepared and ready to be able to do this job. So thank you very much.
Terry.
Yep.
And thank you, Terry, for this leadership, not just in York County, but across Pennsylvania. So with that, more than happy to answer any and all questions.
In 2016, you said that the system was broken. Would you still say that it's broken today?
Yes.
And were you aware of the Bureau of Hearings and Appeals during your previous audits?
That was something that I'm not going to say everyone else didn't know about it, but I was not aware of that process until recently.
So in 2018, the state government switched to NeoGov, and at that same year, during that year, the York CYF actually saw, I believe, a 10-year high in vacancies. I think it got up to 29. And I was wondering, do you think that whether or not that's acceptable, or the state did a proper job of, switching over to the new system?
Yeah, I'll let if Terry wants to comment specifically on the system. To me, that's too many vacancies, and we also know that's happening not just in York but across Pennsylvania, and we just have to do better. Is there anything specific?
Yeah, I think in terms of me as the county administrator and experiencing that, I can't answer whether or not they should have done something differently. I just know the end result of switching over to that new system caused counties like myself, who are, again, York County has been the third highest in the state in this Commonwealth for the number of child abuse reports that we receive. That puts us behind Philadelphia and Allegheny County. And for me to not be able to quickly hire qualified caseworkers and to go months where we didn't have lists that would allow us to continue bringing people in, that did cause us to increase the number of vacancies. But again, we are looking good. We were able to fill those 29 positions within a matter of 3 months, and that was because of some of the creative things I told you that we were doing in the county. We only are about 2 to 3 vacancies right now.
Oh, at least 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Have you looked at the reentry rate for children going back into the system?
That is going to be one of the areas that we'll look at as part of the reviewing this appeal process.
I do want to say, if I can add to that, that York County is showing some really good success. We work very closely with our courts and our judges in a Court of Common Pleas, and we have seen our numbers take a turn for looking very good, meaning that we have many, way less children coming back into care and than we had 3, 4, 5 years ago. So our numbers are looking good for that.
Do you share his concerns with the Bureau?
Yeah, we at York County, and looking at our data, when we appeal, not when we, but when a parent appeals a case that we've indicated, our data does show that we have approximately close to 60% of those are being overturned by the department. I don't mean 60% of all cases that we substantiate,
Right.
only the ones that are appealed. So meaning once someone appeals and says they don't agree with our decision, then we are seeing approximately 60% being overturned.
Does that contribute to the retention rate of caseworkers?
I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. I don't know if they feel as though the work that they did to try and substantiate those cases then, is something.
I'll say this, and sorry, Tiff, I don't mean to interrupt. We met with caseworkers all over the state for our State of the Child report. That was never brought up as one of the reasons. I'm not going to say nobody had it, and I don't want to make the case that it's irrelevant. And I'm sure that if your decision is appealed and overturned, that's frustrating for the worker. But pay scale, working conditions, and feeling that the system was broken with very little chance for success were most often cited as the reasons.
I just have one last question on the Bureau of Hearings and Appeals. Are you concerned, is there a concern that there are children that are being removed from their homes and being placed back with parents that they shouldn't be, and then vice versa, there are children who should be with their parents and are in foster care?
I would say the most overarching concern I have just at the start of this, and then we're going to let the facts go where they are, is that when I just hear about the volume of cases they need to hear and the wide range of subjects they need to hear, I am very concerned that they have the ability. I'm not talking about that there aren't talented people. I don't want to get into that. That just they have the ability to even adequately review the cases. That's my overarching concern. And then we will let the facts go from there. Any other questions? If not, everyone, thank you very much and have a great rest of the day.